Dear guests, the next event will begin in 10 minutes. Please note that food and beverages are not permitted in the sessions. ستبدأ الفعالية القادمة بعد 10 دقائق. ضيوفنا الأعزاء، ستبدأ الجلسة بعد 10 دقائق. يرجو العلم أنه لا يسمح بإدخال الأطعمة والمشروبات خلال الجلسة. Dear guests, the next event will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. ضيوفنا الأعزاء، ستبدأ الجلسة بعد 5 دقائق. يرجى أخذ مقاعدكم. Dear guests, the event is now in session. Thank you. ضيوفنا الأعزاء، ستبدأ الجلسة الآن. شكراً.
Dear guests, thank you for attending Sorbonne University Abu Dhabi conferences for COP28. Today we're having a presentation about digital technologies and their role for climate change. Before we start the session, I would like to thank Expo City Dubai Sales Center for their support and Her Excellency Reem Al Hashimi for extending her support to Sorbonne University Abu Dhabi. I would like now to call Dr. Aude Solveig Epstein on stage.
Thank you very much, Manon, for this introduction. So my name is Aude Solveig Epstein. I'm a visiting assistant professor at NYU Abu Dhabi, where I'm teaching a course on climate law and policy. I'm not a specialist of digital law or technology and the law, but this is a topic I've been increasingly interested in over the last few months, and therefore I'm very thankful to Sorbonne University for having invited me to share a couple of thoughts on how to harness the potential of technologies in order to address the climate crisis. So to start with, a couple of conceptual insights to help you grasp the main terms of the debates. There's a frequent assumption according to which sustainability would be first and foremost a technological challenge. Sustainability to some would be an end that would be lacking means, but on the other hand, technologies, and especially digital technologies, would be means in search of an end. So there's a frequent connection that's being made, and the concept of a twin transition that would be both environmental and digital kind of exemplifies this frequent assumption that in order to make it to net zero, what we need, it's more technology, better technology. But my view on this is that it's a bit complicated. We cannot assume that technology is the answer, and we cannot assume that there's only one way to look at technology to make it to net zero. And that's because sustainability itself is a very contested concept. We don't have one single definition of what sustainability means, which means that we don't have one single set of technologies that we can use in order to get to net zero. So the concept of sustainability is probably as vague as its predecessor, the concept of sustainable development, which emerged on the international scene back in 1987. And it was a very ambiguous concept, this concept of sustainable development. Some insisted on the sustainability factor, some on the development factor. And the question of growth, whether sustainable development means more growth or less growth, has ever since remained debated. So to sum up a bit the debate, I would say there are three different approaches to how growth and sustainability articulate one with another, and the role of technology in this articulation. So to some, sustainable development, sustainability would be all about green growth. The idea here is that new technologies have a potential to decouple the economic growth with the release of pollutants and emissions of greenhouse gases. So you can have more growth, but with less emissions thanks to new technologies. And the consequence that's being drawn from that is that what is needed, it's more money. To tackle the climate crisis, we need more money to make new investments in new technologies. And that's the most salient challenge that's in front of us. So the risk that proponents of green growth put to the fore is that if we give up on growth, then it means we will also give up on social justice. And therefore, we should continue to grow the size of the cake of the economic input so that each of us can have a larger share instead of reducing it. And this view is, of course, very influential, and most policymakers endorse it, from the French President Emmanuel Macron to Sultan Al-Jaber in recent days. Each of them kind of opposes the view that we should go for less fossil fuels, less technology. Quite on the contrary, they claim we should not go back to caves, we should not turn to an Amish model in the name of sustainability. So despite this view being the most prominent today in policy-making circles, there are some challenges to these views. And amongst them, one perception is that we need degrowth instead of more growth. We need less economic growth. And the reason for that is that technology cannot help us to decouple, at least not at a global scale. So even if some areas, Europe for instance, is now having a bit more growth with less emissions, to some, it's only related to the fact that most emissions from the EU are actually imported from third countries, such as China. So even if some areas manage to have more growth with less emissions, the trend is not sustainable at a global scale. And there's also a historical factor. Historically, there has never been such a thing as decoupling. It has always been the case that more growth would go hand in hand with more extraction of natural resources and with more emissions of greenhouse gases. And to the political arguments that less growth would mean less social justice, proponents of degrowth would say, sure, there's an issue here. If we reduce the size of a cake, then how to make sure to lift people out of poverty? And the answer that proponents of degrowth would give is, if we go for degrowth, it means we need to redistribute wealth in a different way so as to decrease inequality and give each human being its fair share of the collective value that's been created. So, and last but not least, there's a third option, which is agrowth. Agrowth means actually we should not care so much about growth or degrowth. It's too ideological. The question is not growth or degrowth. The question is, what is it that we're actually striving to achieve? What is it that we're actually striving to make grow? And proponents of agrowth would say, the most important is to change the indicators of success, indicators of well-being. And what we need, therefore, is to shift from a strictly financial accounting system to an accounting system where sustainability factors would be more valued and taken into consideration by both public and private actors. So what's the role of technology in degrowth and agrowth? So for degrowth proponents, they would say, we don't need more new technology. We have already so many technology that we can use, including low-tech solutions, and that are already present out there, and therefore we don't need so much more money to actually tackle the crisis. While agrowth proponents would say, oh, maybe we don't need so much new technology, but we need data. We need new data to help us calculate all these social and environmental impacts that our societies are having. But with more data, there's a risk that we may end up having more resources being extracted, and there I leave the floor to Nathalie Martial-Braz to explain a bit about the ecological toll of data generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aude. I would like to begin by thank you both for coming and to accept this debate, which is quite interesting because it's on the cross of many challenges. Because, as you said, you are not a specialist of digital law, you are not a specialist of digital law, neither maybe of sustainable law. But it's absolutely necessary to discuss all together because all these problems are absolutely linked. So before going on the effect of the digital on environmental growth or on the problem of the general climate warming, I would like to ask to Luc, which is the CEO, Luc Coquelin, which is the CEO of EDF Middle East, where the new tech can combat in the energy sector, the global warming. What we can use or where we can use the new tech to fight against these challenges. And after I will come back on the other question.
It's on? Yeah. Thank you very much, Nathalie. I would like to thank also Sorbonne University for inviting me today. As you said, I'm definitely not a specialist the law and sustainability. But humbly, I can testify about what a large company like EDF is doing in that field. I don't know who in the audience knows about EDF, but EDF is a French national utility, which is one of the largest electricity companies in the world. And what makes EDF different than others is that we have been the first electricity company, the first utility in the world to make a clear commitment for net zero. There is a French law which allows companies to make a commitment, binding commitment, in their let's say memorandum of association. EDF made this commitment about reaching net zero and building a net zero future. And this is clearly binding for us. We are, it's a guidance for all our investment, all our work, especially in this region. So that said, what is the role of new technologies in that matter for a company like us? So digital technologies have been introduced, say, a bit more than 20 years ago, just as in other large companies, starting with customer experience, so app or website at that time, and also employee, aiming to improve customer experience, and employee also work. And progressively, it has moved to the core business and to the core processes of the company, and especially starting with monitoring of the activities. Monitoring of the generation, monitoring of the plants, and we are currently developing a lot of applications and technologies through our R&D. We have 600 people working in our R&D all over the world, and new technologies. I cannot say how many people are working on digital technologies, but I guess a large part of them. Monitoring systems and e-monitoring is a significant part of our investment in new technologies. With e-monitoring of our plants, with digital twins that we are building for our plants, we are able now to do predictive maintenance of our assets. And predictive maintenance is allowing you to anticipate, let's say, the incident or what can happen on your systems or your plant or your asset or your transmission line, and to anticipate the maintenance. And we assume that about 5% of the generation is saved by this kind of tools. And 5% mean that 5% of savings means that you avoid building 5% of new assets. It means a large investment which is not required anymore through this predictive maintenance. Not talking about also the improvement of your processes, the savings you make on your people, on your travel also, because you don't have to go in the plant. You can do that from a remote site, etc. So that's a large part of the role of the digital technologies in our activities. Another part is the other side of the value chain, is customer. So customer experience with digital technology has been starting with website, basically to have your invoice, to follow your consumption, and progressively it has moved to energy savings and monitoring of the consumption. And that's something I would like to insist on, that in the power sector, everybody is focused on having cleaner generation, cleaner power, which is good. Obviously, I would not say the opposite, but there is also a very clean power, probably the cleanest power and the cheapest power, which is a power that you don't use. And as EDF, it's one of the pillars of our strategy is to promote and accelerate energy efficiency for our customers. And that is not possible without digital technologies. So following the consumption, getting data, analyzing the data, is the only way to know better your customer and to help them to decrease their consumption. So we are also investing a lot in that field. So that has been let's say the start of the journey for us in digital technologies for sustainable or cleaner power. But in parallel, the world of the power sector has been changing. We are coming from a time where we had for each country one big utility having a monopoly with large generation assets, also large transmission and distribution assets, and one single company controlling everything. We are moving from that to a decentralized or a mix of decentralized and centralized system, where you have more and more generation on site. So probably some of you have solar panels on the roof of your house, but there is also companies who are producing for themselves, using solar, using batteries, using other kind of generation. And this is, and we have also more and more other players than the national utility. In EDF, in France, we have a lot of players now in the energy sector, not only in the distribution, but also in the generation of power. And here in the UAE, you have a lot of IPP players like EDF building power plants or developing systems for private customers. This is the future. The future will be a mix of different technologies, different systems, clean and low carbon generation is not only solar, it's a mix of nuclear, solar, wind, batteries, hydro. There is a lot of technologies, and the future is a mix of all of these. And a mix of all these technologies dispatched all over the territory. To monitor that, the problem, sorry, I tried not to be too technical, but one very important characteristic of the power sector for electricity is that you cannot store electricity on a large scale. So you have always to have at the same time the same consumption and the same generation. So generation has to match to the consumption at the same time always. Otherwise you destroy your grid. And that is absolutely key. So it's absolutely key to monitor every single second this balance of generation and consumption. For that, you have to forecast very precisely, and solar power and especially wind power is extremely difficult to forecast because you are dependent on the cloud, on the wind, so it's not just a turbine that you turn on and off, it's something that you have to forecast, so forecasting is key. And also, as this power now is distributed with a lot of players, you have to anticipate the behavior of your customer and the behavior of the other player in the territory at each second of your day. And this needs a lot of digital technologies and more digital technologies to do that precisely. And then we are now coming to another step of this implementation of new technologies, which is the development of EVs and so electric vehicles and distributed batteries. So all of you know, of course, that electric vehicles need electricity, but I'm not sure you know that electric vehicles are also batteries. When you plug your Tesla on the electric plug, electric plug. In fact, you are charging your vehicle, but you could decide to charge it a bit later. And in that way, if you monitor that, you can monitor the consumption on the grid. So we have a more and more investment and development, not only at EDF, but for a lot of players, on the monitoring of the charging of all appliances. I'm quoting electric vehicles, but all electric appliances, in fact, are small distributed batteries that you have on your system. If you are able to monitor all those appliances, you are able to monitor your grid and to decrease the general consumption on the grid. And the name of this is demand response. So so monitoring and developing demand response is the future of the electric system. So I'm not going to be too long on this, but we can see there is a huge future for the digital technologies in the power sector, and this allow not only the savings of electricity, but it allow also the development of more and more renewable energy on the grid.
Thank you very much, Luc, for this explanation and going on that. And to show us that finally the new technology can be very useful for saving some energy and to make some big efforts on the climate change. I just want to show now the other side of the value chain, like you said, and the other side of the coin, because we have, of course, many achievements that we can reach with the new technology, but also at the same time, the new technology has, or all the new technologies have a very huge impact on the climate. Just if we are going on some statements and on some elements, the thing that we can see is that there is a lot of pollution made by all the digital environment in the digital society. So just a few numbers, I think they could be relevant to see the high level of the problem. If we take the full population, 7.9 billion of people, there are, on this amount of the population, we have 75% of the population who lives in cities. We have 66.9% of the population who is the owner of different devices, principally a mobile phone, but all the devices, like for example an Apple Watch or other devices who help to communicate. We have 63% of the population who are using internet on a daily basis, and we have 59% of the population who are active social media users. So we see that it's a huge part of the population who are using on a daily basis all the new technology. If we are going on the question of the pollution made by those devices and all the environmental, all the digital environment, the devices are the most important flashpoints of the pollution. 20% of the pollution is made by the devices. The computers, we put them apart because they are other style of device, and they are responsible for 17% of the pollution. Something which is very important, and we have to make a lot of concern on it, is the generation of the data centers. As you mentioned, both of you, we need some data, of course, to monitor all the progress we can make on the energy sector, but as well to make some progress on the change of climate. We need some data to make some prediction, to have some metrics to be sure that we are able to make good drivers or to help policymakers to take the good decisions. So data are of course, in the middle of the new digital economy, and they are responsible for 90% of the pollution, and we will see how they are responsible. And the networks, all the different networks necessary to browse online, or to exchange email, or to download some video, or to just communicate with other one by the devices, are responsible for 16% of the pollution. So as we can see, there is many places where we have to be aware of the pollution on the field of the digital. If I just take some other numbers, we saw the number of devices and on the number of the different elements who are responsible of the pollution. All the digital environment, digital society, is responsible for 3.5% of the greenhouse gas emission, which is a lot of emission. I don't come back on all the devices, just to give you an idea of what is representing. In fact, when we talk about the devices, we can have an idea, because we saw the materials, we can touch the problem. When we talk about the digital environment, the main problem is that everything is, or most of the things are intangibles. Or even it's intangible, there are some tangible impacts on the environment. We can say that there is around 10 to 12 billion of email which are sent every day around the world. On a daily basis, we have more than 180 million Google research on the research engine. That means just for the video, for the downloading of the video, sometimes not the better one, we can have 300,000 tons of CO2 generated just by the fact that we are watching some video online. And of course, the data centers I just mentioned before are very intensive, energy-intensive companies, energy-intensive centers, and if we just take a comparison, that use 1% of the worldwide energy, electricity, or power in general, use around the planet. So that is a huge impact on electricity. I just put here the picture of this very beautiful data center, which is the most important data center for Google. And why I am showing you, just not just because it's beautiful, but also because if we are going on, I will come back on that after, on the data center, I don't know where, yeah. The data center is not only a source of pollution for electricity, but it's also a pollution for the water. Because when you have these sort of very beautiful places as the one I just showed you, you need a lot of water to refresh the data center, to cool the data center. And we have actually a very huge debate in the States for the place of those data centers, because of course you need some large spaces, so you are going to the most desertic places where you can hire these places for a cheap rental or cheap buying, but that's the same. The problem of those zones is they're very dry, so you need a more impressive cooling system to refresh those data centers. So in fact, in this article of Time, you can see that they need more than 1 million gallons of by day to cool the data center of just the data center who is sitting in the Arizona, where is, of course, there is not much water for the population. So it's also a public debate between the interest of a private company versus the interest of the food population. And the water will be, of course, one of the main problems in the future. So as we can see, it's not only the question of the electricity. But I just want to go back on another problem. We are all facing the very huge progress that we can make every day by using ChatGPT, for example. Those algorithms of generative languages that we can use are very also greedy in energy. If we just make this comparison, you can see that this is the system for training ChatGPT, just training ChatGPT, not using it. And you can see that just for training ChatGPT, it's much more than all the consumption of CO2 of a human life. So it's absolutely crazy, the pollution that we are making, sometimes to ask very stupid questions to ChatGPT. So we definitely need to be learning more sobriety to be sure that when we use the technology, we use it on purpose and for good interest. I want to show you another picture which is very also interesting in the question of the use of the new technology and the impact on the pollution or the environment more broadly. Of course, internet, it's invisible. Of course, sharing some image, it's not visible. But all the cables of the network I just mentioned before, the 16% of the pollution, are under the ocean. So to allow the exchanges, we need to put some cables under the ocean, and to admit those cables could at least disturbing the ocean environment and the ocean life, and that is also a huge problem, which is not only the question of the electricity. In yellow, you can see the networks of just Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. So that is, of course, very important, but it's also an invisible pollution. So we see that there is many pollution made by these devices and the digital environment. So what we can do for that, and is it a sort of obligation to afford that, or can we change the way we are using the new technology? Because as you said before, we can use the new technology for good, so do we need to degrowth, or can we find a third way to obtain a consensus? If we are going on the risk and we are making a projection for the future, definitely we are not on the way of declining the use of new technology. Of course, my presentation is the best example. I'm not going just explaining you by my voice, but I use the new technology, and I use the internet to send it to the guy here who allow me to make this presentation. So we have many risks that there is a large increase of the use of the new technology. Just to give you an idea by another point, is the question of the use of the new money, the blockchain. You probably hear about that, which is probably one of the way of the future of the new technology and the future of the banking, because of course it's very easy to creating some crypto assets and to bypass the bank system. So it's seen as a solution for many people who are fighting for sustainability. But if we are just thinking of those system, those blockchain, even it's not only for creating some money, the mining, which is the way you register the element and the blockchain, is made by calculation by computers. So it's very high consumption in energy, because you need the computer, you need some farm of computers sometimes to be sure that you will be the first to obtain the reward by the calculation you made to obtain the crypto asset. So this action, this proof of work will allow you to win this token, that we call it the mining. The mining is a huge source of pollution, and we planify that it will be increasing between 10 and 60% at the horizon 2020, for 2015-2020, and it will be following the same trend for the future. If we are just regarding US on the way and the European Union on the other side, we can see that we have the same increasing for the future, more 10% of the using of this blockchain for the future, and around 20% of the consumption of blockchain and data center, which are, of course, also a big question in Europe. As we probably know, we adopted the GDPR that oblige, in fact, all the European companies to host all the data in Europe. So you are obliging the creation of data center in Europe, and you, of course, increase the number of those centers who are very huge impact on the environment. Of course, we have some way to try to fight against those problems. The digital regulation could be a source of or a way of sobriety. The first possibility is to create planification to obtain a decarbonization of the digital environment. For that, as you said, we have some binding requirements made by some legislators around the world. In France, we have that we call the roadmap for the low climate and resilience, which is giving some mandatory obligation for the companies, for example. And the idea is to oblige to create the devices differently, to use more eco-friendly materials, to facilitate the reparation instead of the renewal of the terminal, to oblige to choose some environmental criteria to host the different data center, to choose better some places in the north rather than in the south. Like that you can diminish the impact of the cooler station, and of course to try to make some optimization on the infrastructure to reduce here again the impact on the environment. But we have also other legal constraints, and I'm going very quickly on the different regulation proposed by the legislator in Europe. We have different regulation on that we call the digital strategy for European Union. And in this, we have many texts who actually now take account about the environmental objective, which was not the case by the past. And now they're obliged to at least mention the importance in environment. And I just give you 3 examples. The first one is in the Digital Governance Act, where there is an obligation to consider all the data related directly or indirectly with the environment or climate, to consider them as sensitive data. So that means you will apply a different regime, a different process to allow a most easy sharing of data between all the different stakeholders. In the Data Act as well, you oblige the data owners to share those data and to give the access to those data, at least to the public policymakers and to the public actors, to be sure that they can use them to monitor and to make some prediction for the environment. Last but not least, you have in the regulation for for crypto assets, the market in crypto asset regulation was adopted in June 2023. They are obliged to mention in the white paper, you are obliged to propose to create some crypto asset, to mention the level of your consumption and energy. So you have an obligation to precise the proof of work you are using, not to forbid, of course, the more important source of consumption, but to be sure that the consumer, because as you said, the consumer is part of the journey, the consumer is aware about the weight on the environment when he is buying, for example, some Bitcoin or some Ether. What is the weight of those money and those assets on the environment? So we have many ways to try to struggle this problem of the digital environment on the environment, on the climate crisis, but maybe that is not sufficient. So just now I want to ask you, Luc, maybe what we can do to reduce the carbon footprint of all those devices and this digital environment.
Yes, Thank you, Nathalie, for this very interesting presentation. So I'm seeing this issue from another side, because in fact, with our company, we are saving our customers and data centers and digital companies are part of our customers. And as you said, Nathalie, it's getting bigger and bigger customers. They are now very significant. They are now very significant consumptions. What we see is that all over the world, data centers are moving very fast to renewable energy. I don't know any of those big data centers company who are not now trying to, as much as they can, move to renewable energy. And it's not only the effect of the legislation, because I know some places in the world where there is absolutely no legislation on that, and they are moving as well. Why? Under the pressure of their own customers. Because all the biggest customer of the data centers are Microsoft, Google, and all of these big companies who made some commitment on their carbon footprint. And even large let's say industrial companies who are using data centers have also commitment for their carbon footprint. So due to this commitment, they are now looking very deeply on how their data are stored and what is the power supply and the carbon footprint of their data. So we can see that there is a big move now to provide especially solar power to data centers. But one of the issues is the location of the data centers, as you said. So you have to have a combination of a cheap, let's say, cheap land, because it's consuming a large pieces of land, connection to the data networks, but also connection to the grid and sources of water. And it's not easy to find the right combination, but we can see that the consumption of water, the climate, are more and more taken into account in the decision for the localization of the data centers. I can give you an example in the region here. I'm now talking with a customer, which is a big data center company, who is thinking to move the data center, regional data center, to Salalah. I don't know if there is some Omanis here in the room, but for those who have been in Oman, Salalah is a region in the GCC which has the mildest climate. So because of some let's say regional climate effect, the climate is very mild here, very much colder than in the rest of the region, and it makes this localization much more interesting than before for having data centers. And so that's some clear moves that we can see now. But if you take that into account in the localization, it means that in terms of power supply, it's not always the best localization. So you have to think about having off-grid systems to supply power to those data centers. And now we are developing solutions with different kind of batteries and autonomous systems, renewable systems, to provide off-grid power to those data centers. And the last point on which all of us we can work on is, as I said, we have a lot of batteries in our day-to-day lives, phones, cars, and computers. The way we are charging our batteries, and the way we can also, in the future, allow our batteries to serve the system will also contribute a lot to the decrease of the footprint, carbon footprint of our data usage.
Very much for those precision, and I will just give now the floor to Aude, because there is also another sector where the new technology can be used, and we have to assess the impact of the positive or the benefit of disadvantage of the use of new technology on agriculture. So you want to come back here?
Yes, so agriculture is changing. So the perception that we have of farmers has been revolutionized with the increased use of high-tech solutions. When we think of a farm today, we have to think of farmers highly equipped with drones, with RFID chips, and with blockchain solutions, and with a host of decision-making tools that would help them deciding what to grow, when to harvest, how many nitrogen to spread, and so on. And never mind with the slides. I mean, I'm going to be very quick to leave some time for the questions. And because Nathalie already explained all the potential ecological backlash of this increased use of digital solutions, I would just like to also draw your attention on the social risks of this development of technological solutions in the agricultural sector. Of course, if the ecological toll of this increased use of technology is huge, and we have a hard time trying to assess it, but it's huge. But there's also social consequences that need to be taken into consideration. The suicide rate amongst the farmers' population is amongst the highest in the world. Among the different occupations, jobs that various farmers are the most prone to commit suicide in many places of the world, from the developing world to the developed one. And there's a reason for that. It's that they have been taken on too much debt, and this is causing their ruin and precipitating them to commit suicide. So with the increasing urge to turn to more technological solution, what will happen is probably that there will be urge to take on more debt. And how to make that sustainable, I'm not so sure. I have no clue. I have no solution. And my fear is that eventually the increased use of technology may lead to increased disciplinary solutions imposed on farmers, to many farmers being excluded from the market because they have not the funding available to buy these new technological solutions. There's also a risk that many farmers don't have even access to the data that they produce with their own connected tractors and their own technological solutions, and that all this data be pulled into large companies who then have even more power to exclude their own competitors from the market for instance, providing data-driven advice to farmers. And, well, so all these risks, they need to be taken into consideration by regulators when they enact new regulations. And this means that at the very same time, when regulators will pass new legislations to incentivize the development of new technologies, they need to think of both the ecological drawbacks and the social and economic risks that go hand in hand with the development of new technology. And what this means is that the role of the law is, it's very diverse. It's often the case that we insist on the role of the law to allocate property rights, for instance, to say, oh, who will own this data? And for sure, that's an important role to enhance data protection and investments in data production. We also insist on the role of the law in determining who will have to pay for the damages, and especially the ecological damages of new technology. And of course, this is also an important stake, But I think the role of the law goes even further. The role of the law is to steer the transition in such a way as to harness the potential of technologies while also anticipating all the social and ecological damages that will probably occur and building in safeguards, ecological safeguards and social safeguards in the very infrastructure of the law. And yeah, this would be my main message. And thank you for your attention. Thank you, Nathalie, for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Maybe you can come with us, and we let a bit of time, not a lot, but to receive questions from the floor, if there is some, if there are some. We will be very pleased to answer it. So, yeah.
Hello. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm very bad with names, so I'm going to mention first speaker, second speaker, and so on. So the first speaker gave a very compelling argument about whether investing more in technology is going to be allowing us to get better sustainability or not. And then the other speakers went on in all sorts of arguments. It's as if you started a concert, everyone was dancing around it. But effectively, we need evidence for or against what you're mentioning, because I didn't hear any evidence. I have a lot of discussions, but no particular pointers. Can you point us to papers, white papers, any type of evidence that would give direction in other way? Thank you.
Okay, even the question is for the three of us. I think there are lots of evidence in both sides. Even it's not very convenient for the mind to admit that there is no black or white solution, but there are a lot of scientific papers who monitor the effect of the digital on the environment. All the numbers and the figures I gave you are produced by scientists. I can give you many examples. We have in France a very important association who called the Shift Project, and they made a lot of criteria to monitor and to measure the impact of the digital on the environment. So we have, and all the examples I gave you, it's not just only discussion, it's fact, even if they are not very, how to say it, pleasant, because we are all using those devices. We are continuing sending email, and we will use this new technology. We have to face the fact that data centers are greedy in energy, that we need a lot of water to refresh those data centers, and it will be the same for all the elements. So we have some proof.
Yeah, sorry, can I just follow up very quickly? So let me give you an example. You mentioned 67 million servers. I want to know, as a business owner or a home owner or a practitioner, what servers are we talking about? Is it the servers I have in my office? Is it the servers I have at home? Is it the ones in the IT providers' data centers? And how much actually is being consumed? Because I don't know whether my mobile phone is the one that is causing a problem, whether there are other devices that are more consuming to energy, like ChatGPT. So we need more specifics about what is being said here. The data that you showed is fine, but they are very generic. They're really general purpose about the population. We want to get something that is very specific so that as individuals, as business owners, we know what actually is needed of us. Yeah. And how do we go in which direction?
I think we can, but not in a 1 hour in a panel like that, because it's not possible to go in such detail. But all those numbers are, of course, disponible if you want to have them. They are available on the different websites I mentioned. For example, if you want the detail of the different devices, private, professional devices, the computer versus the phone, or the computer versus the watches, or you have those details. I invite you to go to the Shift Project, where you have all the detail. You have also all the detail on the French website, for example, the ADEME, who have made a lot of studies on that. But on 1 hour, it's very difficult. And I think that the main message was to say, all those technology we are all using, or professionally or personally, are using a lot of energy, water, electricity, and many other, and they have an impact, even they are not visible. That is my main message, but I give the floor maybe to Aude to complete.
So just to add a few things to the response, I agree, like in 1 hour it's not possible to be as specific as you would expect, and I'm very sorry for that. But we have to complain to the COP team to not give us full days of conferences. And but just in addition to what Nathalie just said, there's one author which has been very inspirational for many generations of not just lawyers but also economists, and his name is Jevons. Jevons, actually, he worked back in the 19th century on the extraction of coal in the UK. And he noticed a very strange phenomenon. At the same time as the UK was getting better and better, more efficient in extracting the coal, more coal was being consumed. So this was a paradox named the rebound effects, or the Jevons paradox, whereby the more efficient you get, the more resources you consume. And there are many drivers that explain this paradox, but this paradox will find it again when it comes to the development of digital technologies, the same way as other technologies. More technologies, historically, has come with more resources being extracted. Maybe there's a solution, but for now we haven't found the silver bullet. And the second thing I wanted to react, you said we need information as consumers. We need to do, and we need to understand, to fight our anxiety and to know exactly what is it that we can do, and for that we need data. And I completely agree with you, and I think one of the very important stakes is how all this data that's being collected, how will it reach consumers so that consumers can make well-informed decisions. On the other hand, consumers are not completely the most powerful actors to drive changes. For many different reasons, but as lawyers, one thing I would like to highlight is that many activities that we're speaking about are highly subsidized. So because there's so much subsidies, the price system is somehow flawed, and flawed in favor of activities and products that are highly emitting. So to me, it's more straightforward to go, and to change the way producers act at the very root of the problem, rather than to ask millions of atomized consumers to change their individual behavior.
And maybe last on my side, I don't know in which country you're living, but what I can say is that EDF, for our customers in France, and what I know from most of the utilities in the world, we are making all the data available for the customers to make their own choice. And to monitor the energy consumption. So you can have, most of the time, I can say in France, you have an app, for example, from EDF, that can help you to monitor your consumption for each of your appliances at your home. So you can see what you're consuming, when you're consuming, and how you can save. And that's for free. And if you, as a company, you pay, you can have some detailed advices that you can get from different consultants to help you to decrease your carbon footprint. That's something you can very easily do.
Praskovia.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you so much for your presentations. Praskovia Svad, Associate Professor, Sorbonne University, and my question will go to a colleague engaged in developing new technologies. Now, we've just presented a pre-study on greening information management, and one of the problems we have is lack of sustainability, because information is dependent on information systems. So now I'm just asking, as we develop more technologies, what is the commitment to sustainability? Because we're a digital society now, right? But we have technologies that become obsolete. So with all the brains around, with all the engagements in these new developments, artificial intelligence, big data, I'm just wondering, where is the commitment? Because I have a feeling like technology is really driving us and pretty fast. But it seems like there is another factor that I would like to refer to as economic determinism. that is wearing out companies. They are supposed, they can have a new system running, but as soon as an upgrade comes, they have to, undertake a change management, throw away the new system and upgrade. So I'm just asking this politely from the system developers, these, ingenious people. Where is sustainability? Because we are dependent on the data. A lot of data is being collected, but that data management is dependent on systems that are not, that lack sustainability. Thank you.
I'm not involved in the development of data technologies, but in terms of power technologies, of course, things are evolving quite fast. But what I can say is that when we are building a power plant, even for new solar plants, we are building those plants for a period between minimum 15 and up to 100 years. The power assets are long-term assets. So when we do that, we take into account a very long duration of these assets. So I think the whole power sector is really have always in mind the sustainability of those investments and their impact also on the environment on the very long term. That's really part of the decision making, and just because it's a huge investment, I could say even not for sustainability reason, but just for financial reason, we have to take that into account. But of course, the digital technologies are evolving very fast, but I'm sure just for financial reasons, they have to have that in mind.
Just a last word from Aude, and after, if you want, we can have a discussion there, because we have to give back the floor.
Just a very, very final word to say. I've been giving lots of thoughts on whether we need really all this new information. We're overflooded with information. At some point, I think we never had that amount of information, and we were never so much lagging behind in terms of tackling the climate crisis and the ecological crisis. So I would think maybe there's something to do about, maybe we should stop asking always for more information and start acting despite the uncertainties that sometimes are left. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you want to ask more questions, we will stay there a few minutes. Thank you very much.